Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and this is a video about the full moon in Gemini 2020 that happened on November 30th, 2020 at 4:29 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, this video is specifically for the Twin Soul Collective. This particular passageway, I just kind of want to acknowledge right up front, has not been easy for so many of you that I've spoken to. The open comments that are still on this channel, just kind of seeing what people are saying and sharing in those comments, and kind of connecting with some of the colleagues in the field. I've noticed that this passageway leading up to the opening of the twin flame union window has been rough. And I want to just kind of acknowledge that many of you have really been struggling, and you're not alone. Much of what's going on here as we close out one cycle and jump into another is a moment of deep reflection and clarity. And I think Fierce Tarot said this in one of her more recent videos. She had said, she had felt like we were all in this spiritual battle between fear and doubt and what was just reality, what's just actually going on, and trying to face reality. And that is one of the giftings of this moment, is a very high commitment to what's so and what's real and what's true, which is also, it can also be extraordinarily sobering. And the closer Jupiter gets to Saturn in the coming weeks, we are going to continue to have this experience of feeling brought back down to reality, brought to earth in the way that we're perceiving ourselves and our connections with divine counterparts, and in the way that we're understanding divine counterparts and where they're at in their life and where things are at between the two of you. There's a real sobering look at what is going on in your connection. And so for the divine feminine in particular, she's been transiting the sign of transformation and growth. That's Scorpio. And in the shadow, with scorpionic energy, what we're dealing with is our relationship to fear and our relationship to power. And there's been a massive confrontation for divine feminines around having our fear and our doubt show up extraordinarily loud and crystal clear, as well as a recognition and a real clarity about what we have zero power to control, what it is that we can't make or force into a different direction, what it is that is just, this is what it is. Grass is green, sky is blue. There's just no other way around what's happening here in the connection. So if that kind of clarity has shown up, but it has also pushed you right up against your fears and your doubts inside of your connection, I want you to know that this is part of the process. This is part of stabilizing you in the world of reality. And I thank Fierce Tarot for putting that in such clear words, because that's what this has been. It has been a bit of a spiritual battle for all of us as it pertains to our relationship to fear, doubt, and reality, and trying to understand, that we can't just use our hope willy-nilly. We can't use it to erase reality. We can't use our faith to not confront uncomfortable truths. We actually need to utilize, reality in order to ground us in what actually needs to happen to move forward. And that's part of the gifting of this passageway, is being able to get so close to our fears and doubts and being able to see, okay, what's real and what's just me being crazy. There's a need for that level of clarity at this time. And all of our feminine energies have been moving through that. And if you identify as being more consistently in your divine feminine energy, because Mercury has been dancing with Juno, whom I read as the divine feminine, for so many weeks now in that sign of Scorpio. The recognition, the clarity, Mercury is all about mind and communication. This has been up for you. There's a bit of blinders off to what's reality, but also an unignorability about your fears and your doubts. And so there's a need to really kind of get sober, get grounded into the world of what's happening. Um, and that for many, depending upon how far away you've been from the realities in your connection, this process can be very painful, as it can be very dream shattering. But the silver lining of dream shattering is that it's reality building. If you've had this kind of fantasy that things were one way in your connection, and in the course of this passageway, you've been getting some clarity in no uncertain terms from within you, and also signals from your counterpart. Yeah, things aren't actually like that. This would have been the opportunity you needed to get clear about how things actually are, because you can't build into what's next by pretending that things aren't what they are. You have to start with an actual solid starting place. And so there's been a lot of that in the energy in the collective. And it's the more that we look away from our fears, or the more that we give in to our fears, and both of these are extremes. It's not actually being with what the fear is itself. Looking away from it and falling into it by catastrophizing and falling into a rabbit hole with catastrophe, neither one of those is a place of power. And so acknowledging the fear for what it is, that is a place of power. It allows you to get close to where you are actually powerless. Yeah, there are some things you can't fix, some things you can't change, some things you can't make be a way that they are not. And from that place of power, we have the opportunity to get all that rich Scorpio gold, all that rich scorpionic growth that the Scorpio energy provides us the opportunity to have, by letting some of our false ideas of what is die. We can have a real, instead of building like castles on sand, we can start to build castles on solid earth. Like, okay, so what is this? What can I do? What is workable here? So, not to worry if you have found yourself in one of those two directions around, fully giving into your fear, or completely ignoring it and running away with, some of the energies. There's been a real propensity here, given some of the planetary placements here, to fall into kind of old patterns, old habits around addiction, or to do a spiritual bypass on some of the pain that the scorpionic energy, the divine feminine, is traveling through, is presenting to us. It'd be very easy to just kind of salt bath, meditate your way through this without actually paying attention to what the pain is signaling. And so if you've done that, it's okay. But this is, this particular full moon and the energy surrounding it. And as we head into, the next eclipse, this is a moment of getting back to yourself, getting back to center. Here's what is, here's where I have power, here's where I don't, here's what I'm afraid of, and here's what I can actually do about that, and here's what I need to just surrender over to the universe, to the divine, to the higher self that guides this connection and this union. Here's what I just need to surrender and just wait and allow things to unfold. So that's kind of been the journey for the divine feminine energy during this passageway. Um, so yeah, I don't know another way to say it. It's been rough, but don't beat yourself up for the fact that it's been rough. Don't beat yourself up if it's been a challenge to kind of stay high vibrational about this. This was never a period of time where you were meant to stay, all love and light. This was a period of time where you were meant to kind of dig into some of your wounding and have a really good look at what it's trying to tell you and teach you at this time. Because Scorpio is also about endings and completions, death, it governs the resurrection cycle, which is death, the afterlife, and then the rebirth. Because Scorpio governs that entire cycle, this in between passageway before the divine feminine pops out into Sagittarius, where she's going to stay for 11 months. She just came out of 11 months in Libra. This kind of 40-ish days of Scorpio energy for divine feminine is a real period of purification. And so this, when you're really think about like if you were, had been through an accumulated cycle or an accumulated period of cleaning stuff up and looking at stuff, which is what the divine feminine was doing in the sign of Libra as she faced herself in the sign of Aries. Aries is self, Libra is partnership, 11 months facing herself. Libra is opposite Aries. Anytime you're doing deep work, or let's just say you're cleaning out a garage, when you're done, you're going to be dirty. And when you get in the shower, dirt's going to start coming off of you. So, don't be concerned if this has been messy. It was supposed to be. Cleaning up is never really a clean job until you're on the other side and it's done. It's okay if this has been a little bit messy. Be gentle with yourself if there has been, some moments where you haven't felt your own light. Sometimes, it's in the darkness that we're able to find the truest and most evergreen sources of light within ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about what the divine masculine's been up to. After 3 meetups with Pluto, Lord of the Underworld, Pluto is also the governing planetary energy of Scorpio, the modern day ruler of Scorpio. Both energies, divine feminine and divine masculine, have been playing in this energy of let's confront fear, let's confront doubt, let's confront our power issues, and let's move into transformation and growth. The divine feminine's only been doing that more recently. The divine masculine's been doing that all year long. There was a meetup with Pluto back in March. And you may have felt at that time there was like a major confrontation in terms of, where you have power and where you don't at that time. Then there was another meetup with Pluto at the very end of June on June 30th. So, right as June and July hit, there would have been this secondary kind of like, crap. Okay, I see where I am powerless to make change around this or that. And it would have catalyzed a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. Certainly you would have had some questions about your own masculinity if you are incarnated, in a male body or you identify with the male gender and all of the constructs around that. And if you're incarnated in a female body or identify with the constructs around your femininity, this would have been around really confronting once again some of that, like, wow, I cannot change this. And there would have been a lot of recognition around that in a particular area of your life. Then the final meetup of Jupiter with Pluto, because Pluto again is death and destruction. That was on November 11th, 11/11 this year. Thank God it's over. The energy is still present. I mean, the dust has not settled. There is still dust in the space. But we now understand, like, okay, this is where I'm at with this particular thing, and this is how I intend to move forward with it. It's been extraordinarily catalytic, clarifying, changing for everyone on both sides of the connection. So, if during those periods of time, you found that you needed to withdraw from your connection, or you found something really catalytic happening in your life, A job loss, a family loss, a monetary loss. All of those are kind of the divine masculine's been swimming in Capricorn and facing Cancer, which is about family. Capricorn is about work, institutions, legacy, what we're building, tradition. So if there were hits in those areas of your life around, okay, money, what you're building, your career, your business, it was because this period of time was meant to clarify for you in no uncertain terms where you have power, where you don't. And it was meant to help reconnect you in that recognition to your soul and divorce you from your ego. This is what this whole year has been about for the divine masculine energy. And I know from talking to so many of you that, yeah, it's been ego breaking for sure. So, thankfully, dust's not settled, but cataclysm's over for now. And we have this new sober energy as we start to move. The Jupiter energy starts to move towards Saturn. So here's Jupiter right here. Here's Saturn. They are now 2 degrees away from one another. And this is rebuilding optimism, but without false reality or false hope. There's no false hope in these next steps. There's sober truth in these next steps. And this is actually a really good thing. Because when we start to believe in the fairy tales and mythologies that our ego has built up around it, we are not interacting with the divine in us or the divine in the world. Instead, we're, buying into the world of shoulds instead of being grounded in what is. And our power lives in being real with what is, as opposed to what other people tell us we should have or should be. So, as we all walk into getting more clearly reconnected to our power, this lunar eclipse that just occurred is part of a much larger cycle. And I want to speak to that now because lunar eclipses never work solo. And so, a lot of people, astrologers, readers, they will talk about a singular eclipse as if that one eclipse could actually be, the end all be all change in your life. It never is. Eclipses work in series, and it's the series that's helping us move from one place to another. And that's especially at this time with the Sag-Gemini eclipse cycle. So, what we just had was a lunar eclipse. It's going to be followed by a solar eclipse on December 14th. The lunar eclipse that happened at November 30th was the completion of a cycle. And it's a completing energy because lunar eclipses bring endings, solar eclipses bring beginnings. But I want you to have a look at the way this eclipse cycle works. I'm going to pull it up for you. Okay. So if you can follow the cursor and the highlights here, we have overlapping eclipse cycles, and you can see the sign energy over here on the right. We've got Cancer and Capricorn eclipse cycles, which came to a close. But now we have opened up the Sag-Gemini eclipse cycles. You can see Sag-Gemini energies over here on the right side of your screen there, and the dates when these eclipses will happen. Lunar eclipses, as I mentioned, signify closings and completions. It is the solar eclipses that signify the openings and new beginnings. But check out how this particular eclipse cycle works. Sagittarius, lunar eclipse June 5th. Then we've got lunar eclipse in Gemini November 30th. Then we have another lunar eclipse next May in Sagittarius. But just as that's going on, we also have a solar eclipse new beginning December 14th, solar eclipse new beginning next June, and then the cycle completes with a solar eclipse new beginning next December. In other words, this particular cycle opens with a series of endings, but with every closed door, we also get an open door that unfolds as well. So if this year 2020 has felt like just one ending after another, it's because what this energy is trying to do is move you to the next open door and get you off of whatever it is you've been clinging on to as part of the last season, the last cycle. So, Sag and Gemini are signs in the zodiac around communication. So, wherever in your chart you have Sag and Gemini, pay attention to those houses because this is going to be about the mental constructs, worldview, paradigms, thought forms, and communication systems you have in place for those houses. And if something is ending on those house axes, on those, something else will begin in 2021 on those very same house axes. So, my star school students, you guys know which axes of the zodiac. We talked about the axes of the zodiac extensively in Star School 101, but you're welcome to just kind of Google the houses and what they mean when you look at your own chart so that you can get a sense of what this is going to mean for you. The other thing to remember is that Sagittarius and Gemini are mutable signs. And so the mutable energy is there's three modes in the zodiac. The modes are ways that we respond to what's going on. There's the cardinal mode, and cardinal signs and cardinal seasons are about initiations and new beginnings. Aries being the first of spring, Cancer being the first of summer. We've got Libra, that's the first of fall. And then we've got Capricorn, which is the very first of winter. The fixed signs are the height, the peak of those energies. They stabilize, they make things consistent. And the fixed signs is the mode of responding to things by stabilizing it, by holding on to what it was. And the mutable energies, these are the seasons of change. And again, these are Northern Hemisphere references, but Gemini is the season that moves us from spring into summer. It starts one way, ends another. Okay. Then we have Virgo that starts summer, but it ends officially in fall. Then we have Sagittarius. It starts fall and officially ends in winter. And finally, Pisces, which is legitimately winter when it starts, but it is definitely spring by the time Pisces season is over. You need to remember that the way this energy is operating, again, because this is an overlapping series of eclipse cycles, the way this energy is operating is Sag and Gemini, mutable energies. It's going to start one way, end another. And the way the mutable seasons work is sometimes we get 2 weeks of the season that's coming only to have a full week of the previous season before we move fully into where we're going to land. So just remember that this process may feel a little 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We have we have the illustrious astrologer Susan Miller from Astrology Zone who created this chart for us of eclipse dates. You definitely want to have a look at it. You can find it underneath this video linked. And then pay attention in your own astrological chart to the degrees, that's this information right here, to the degrees where things are happening. Because anything you have at these degrees, any aspects of your personality, planetary energies, are going to be impacted most by each one of these. Okay. So you can find that underneath this video, but getting back into it here, change is upon us, and that's really the name of this game. And depending upon your relationship with uncertainty and change and completions and new beginnings, this may feel challenging to you. It's funny, I spoke with a fixed sign in Star School And she was like, every time my counterpart shows up, it's a massive disruption. I'm like, what are you, a fixed sign? She was like, yes. I was like, that's why it feels like a disruption. He's showing up when he's scheduled to connect with you. However, fixed signs relationship to change, unless you're a Scorpio, which is fixed change, fixed signs relationship to change is no, 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 no. We're here to stabilize. We are not here to transform. So you may not necessarily be a fixed sun or moon or rising. You just may not have necessarily been given really great tools around shifting and change and being with uncertainty. But that's exactly what this particular cycle is asking you to do, to hang out in, you know what? I don't know, to not make final decisions, to not place yourself so far into one camp that you lack the flexibility to bend and flow with the changes as they come. It is the rigid branch that breaks. It's the flexible branch that actually survives and thrives inside this particular eclipse cycle. So, finding your way to boost your capacity to be flexible is going to be key. Um, so, yeah, this is the energy of now. On December 14th, we get a solar eclipse, which heralds, you know, the first of the solar eclipses in this cycle, the first of new beginning energies. And there will be a total of 3 of them before we close this cycle out. So, not all hope is lost, beloveds. It's been a challenging time for all of us. I want to encourage you, if you haven't listened to it yet, there is a video called The Divine Masculine's Journey, or Divine Masculine 2020 Energies, that's also linked below this video. And it will help explain some of the process that all of our masculine energies have been in. And if you're a divine feminine who's in communication with her divine masculine counterpart, you'll have the experience of having some light bulbs about, why is he acting like this as you watch that video. So I'll leave it there for you. And then if you want to get a handle on some of the, um, the overall energy of this particular passageway, definitely watch the Lightworker energy update, because it'll get more in depth with, okay, here's what the planets were doing and here's specifically what that means for you at this point in the journey. This is more kind of an overall what's going on with twin souls energetically and where are we all headed. So readings will open for the middle of January, at the middle of December. So if you'd like to book a reading for the latter half of January, just be sure to keep your eyes on the website from December 15th forward. The first half of January and all of December is already sold out. And I'm just so grateful that I get to support so many of you. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe if you have not subscribed already. These updates come out typically on every new and full moon. And we have a lot of other great content coming very soon from guest speakers as well. So, who are here to help you in your connection as we move into this particular union energy cycle. The final thing that I want to say is that if you are trying to figure out, like, okay, there's this union window opening, it's a longer period of time, is this us or is it not us? Is this our exit point? Is it not? I will say, from the people that I've been speaking to, I want to say that 2 contradictory things are true, and that's the nature of the Sag-Gemini eclipse cycle. So much fun. The first thing I'm going to say is that for most of my clients, if this is kind of your union window, you kind of know that already. You and your counterpart, you've been in communication. Communication has been going smooth. There's been new disclosure of information and certain truths that maybe you haven't had in the past. There's been recognition of who one another is in conversation. You're really starting to see this already start to materialize in the 3D world. And so if that's not happening for you, this may not be your time. And so I want to re-encourage you that, first of all, this particular union window, it's not the easiest of all of the union windows that could possibly occur. It's like the third easiest. We have other union windows coming in the future. So if this isn't your moment, take the lessons you're receiving for what they are. And if you're in union already and you're kind of listening and watching all this unfold between you and your counterpart and the way the two of you have struggled this year, know that because of what you've been through this year, you're about to head into a period of time which is going to have a lot more stability for both of you. It'll be an opportunity to build on everything, rebuild on solid ground some of the things that got stripped away in 2020. So whether or not the two of you were working in a business or in projects together, living together, trying to conceive, what have you, whatever it is you've been trying to do together, if it felt like you just couldn't really get in sync or get there, as we close 2020 and move into this union window, you're going to find so much more flow with everything you've been trying. And it's a great time to try and reconnect on issues that maybe there's, been a consistent stalling at, like standstill issues. Once we get out into January and past that final eclipse point and the solstice, you're going to see that there's just a new openness, a new level of truth, a new level of certainty, and a new level of willingness to just try new things between the two of you if you're in union that will finally start to have things flow. Thank goodness, right? So that's the first thing I want to say, which is like most of the people who are going to come into union, they know that already. If this isn't your time, it's okay. The second thing I'm going to say is that if you're not coming into union, do not be surprised. Let me put that a different way. Prepare yourself for surprises, because this particular energy and the way Uranus is kind of playing into some of these energies over the course of the next year, and some of the way the divine masculine energy within all of us is going to make a reemergence in the sign of Aquarius, there will be surprises. There will be reversals, turnarounds, new information. There will be new things coming forward that you did not expect. So just because it's not happening doesn't mean it won't happen during this particular union window. So, two contradictory things, I know, such as life. We can have two things that seem to be not how, that might cancel each other out simultaneously, be true at the same time. So this is why I'm telling you, you want to make sure you can increase your capacity to be open, to be flexible. And as Sagittarius and Gemini teach us, to drop old thought forms, old beliefs that you've been carrying around about yourself, your connection, your counterpart, drop them, because you want every opportunity possible for your union, your counterpart, and yourself to show up in the most evolved way possible. And as long as you're projecting the past onto what someone else is trying to create as their new future, you're only ever going to get the part of them that is past. And as they start to really build into new self, you may find that they start to distance themselves from you if you're constantly looking for recompense for a past that is no longer present. So, do what you need to do. That's part of what this passageway has been about. Do what you need to do to purge your pain, to heal it, to be present with it, to face it, and to start to bring forward new paradigms. Because as we move out into this cycle, the Aquarian energy that's a divine masculine is going to sit in, and that freedom energy that the divine feminine is going to sit in, this is going to allow each of you to be very different people than you've ever been with one another before. And that is incredibly exciting. So be prepared for some surprises, for your person to show up in some new ways. But also, you know, like if it looks like nothing's happening, it's okay. There are other union windows in the future. So I just want to make sure I leave you with that note of encouragement, and self-compassion as well, that this is a journey, doesn't happen overnight. Um, and there will be stages and processes that this unfolds within, as opposed to kind of all at once. Thank you so much once again for subscribing. Thank you so much for sharing these videos. So many of you tell me, like, I've been sharing this over here, you know, on my Reddit, or, you know, I've shared it over here in this group or in that group on Facebook. And I really appreciate that you guys do that. If you found resonance here, it means a lot to me. And I really look forward to seeing you at the next lunar video.